Good morning.
Good morning.
The Ronnie
Oh, are
will
we
have to
are we
add the
live? Oh, we're
audio.
recording. We're live. All right.
Yeah. So intro. Welcome to Second Lap. Rob Matson, as you can see the title below, and I've got Patric Fransko, one of my longest friends on here. Patric, I'm taking over the kicking off of the recordings. And so this is my third solo attempt to do this on my own. And my producer, I'm very familiar with Ronnie, keeps setting it up so that even a caveman can do it. Yet obviously I'm not a caveman because we've gone live and it's been on X, but it's not recorded. It's recorded, but it's not been live on X. And now we're live on X, it's recording locally, and the intro is gone. So we didn't get the music.
It'll get there.
Yeah.
Making progress. Sooner or later, it'll all come together.
Either it's going to come together, or I'm going to have to find something else to do for a living. Welcome this morning. Thank you for squeezing us in on a
No problem.
Just less than 7 days and Christmas.
Yeah. And you can see behind me, I'm on my back patio at home. You can see it's looking very much like Christmas here.
It is totally beautiful. I mean, that is just absolutely beautiful. Did that come down last night?
It's been like the last 2 weeks. We've been getting a little bit of snow, so it's just kind of been over the last 2 weeks. I think we've gotten like 17 inches total over the last 2 weeks.
I don't know the answer to this. Are you a snow blower for the driveway? Are you sending Enzo out and you shoveling when you get 17 inches? How are you managing the driveway?
Well, it wasn't 17 inches that came all at one time. It was 17 inches that came over the course of 2 weeks. But yeah, we have a snow blower. But the way our driveway is oriented, we sort of snow blow about 3/4 of it, and then we end up having to shovel about 1/4 of it, just because up close to the house the snowblower isn't the best, or real close to the garages or things like that.
I hear you. So there still is manual and grooming and all the stuff. I remember.
Yeah, but the bulk of the length of the driveway we can use the snowblower on.
Yeah, that's so cool. See, I lived in a long driveway in Alaska as a kid, and we didn't have a snowblower. We had me and my dad. And sometimes we would get, somebody like the neighbor would have a truck with a plow on the front. You'd give them a 20 and he'd do it for you kind of thing. But mostly my youth was shoveling, the driveway, the walkway out to the driveway, the front porch, back porch, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so
I gotta say that would not be fun, but there is something strangely satisfying about using a snowblower. It's a very I don't know, some people might get the same thing from a perfectly mowed lawn, but when you go out and there's a foot of snow or 8 inches of snow on the driveway and you get done and it's a completely clean driveway with nice crisp edges and things like that, there's something strangely satisfying about that.
My chore as a child was the vacuuming and making all the lines line up and to do each row and make sure there was linearity. I understand completely that satisfaction you're describing.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I got it. Well, hey, we've pitter-pattered. It's kind of ironic on all of, the sort of things that line up. I'm going to a funeral this afternoon for a family member that passed away from cancer, and I'm here talking to one of my best friends that survived it twice, and I'm super grateful you're here.
And I'm sorry for your loss too. That's horrible, especially somebody that young. Unbelievably tragic.
It's just the craziness of speed, and she actually had a form of melanoma that went to her brain, and yeah, I don't know if there's the quickness. I don't know if there's any silver lining. It just brings you back, at least brings me back to, being grateful for what I have and
the
friends and things that nature. I know I was going to go through, hey, you've been through this and it's been a blessing. And I know there's been a lot of mental stuff that's gone along with it, but it takes me to the next point, which is you successfully accomplished what they've, been putting in movies and TV shows and telling us is the white rabbit, which is retirement, which is, hey, I'm no longer,
Well,
responsible.
semi. I like to use the word semi.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We've not actually talked about how, because it is a mental game. And, are you telling yourself, hey, enjoy because I know you've got the rig and you've got the boy going to graduate in 2026 and you're getting yourself all set up. But are you going to be calling yourself semi at that point too? Because you'll be writing articles and other things. I mean, where does that?
To answer your question, I've always said, even before I had the cancer, that I don't ever see myself retiring by the traditional definition of the word, i.e., for clarity, that you stop working one day and then that's it. You don't work anymore.
Yes.
I'm too much of my personality is such that I always have to be messing around with something, whether that's a little like side gig or whether that is doing some consulting or whatever. So yesterday I did a 2-hour consulting gig with a client so I don't ever see myself completely retiring if that means I'm not doing anything work related anymore, just because I think that I actually enjoy certain elements of work. There's certain elements of it that I don't like, but I do enjoy going in and, like yesterday, spending 2 hours with a company and helping them define their strategy moving forward in 2026. I do enjoy that. So to me, doing those type of things, if that means I'm not technically retired, then I guess I'm not technically retired, but I don't ever see myself like just sitting on a beach somewhere, going fishing every day. That's just that's not how I'm wired.
33 years of knowing you, I see and understand that completely. I think where I would be more curious and, for the people that I think are listening and watching this, what do you credit yourself with for the speed and efficiency and output that I feel like you've had? Do you feel like you were, a penny pincher? And I know your car collection, so I know that's a BS statement. You weren't a penny pincher, but were you just smart? Were you lucky? What do you credit it to?
I'll give you a very boring answer that
Please.
Everybody wants to have but this would be something, if you've ever read the book, The Millionaire Next Door or something like that. I started investing early in a 401k that had a company match. And I'm talking like right out of college in my 20s.
Yep.
And I have consistently invested over the course of 30 years. I mean, I never jumped on trends. I never tried to figure out what the next NVIDIA is or anything like that. I just month in, month out, plowed money away. And, and over the course of 30 years, you'd be amazed at what the interest and everything like that can do. It's amazing. If you've ever read some of those studies that say, if you start in your 20s, putting away $100 a month and you're like 25 all the way till retirement, so 30 years,
right?
Or you start at 35, putting away like $500 a month till you retire, you will have more money if you started at 25, putting away $100 a month, because the nature of, compounding interest and things like that. So I guess my path has been, I'd love to have a better story like that. I picked Tesla back when it was $2 a share, or that I, bought a bunch of Bitcoin when it was $5,000 a coin. But the reality for me is just consistently investing monthly for 30 years and taking advantage of company matches where they were available and things of that nature.
I think you and I have been around the block enough. I mean, you hear about it in almost every aspect of anything that's successful, which is consistency is king. Like, just keep doing it. You fall off the horse, get right back on the horse. Just keep doing consistency. So,
And I try to tell my kids or anybody that age, it's like you have a unique window when you graduate from college. My wife and I met in college and we got married, and we were working. I was working as a wrench / sales guy at the local bike shop, the campus bike shop, and my wife was working at a little clothing boutique for the campus as well. We were making nothing. I mean, literally nothing. We were living, when we first got married, she was finishing her last year of her bachelor's and I was doing my first year of graduate work. And we literally were living in a $400 a month apartment, and we had literally next to nothing. No, we didn't have a lot of extra money or anything like that. Right. And I got my first job out of college after my first semester of graduate work. I got an offer from Schwinn, the bike company, because they knew of me from working at the bike shop. Right. And I went from us making nothing to, and this is in 1996. My first job was $65,000 a year plus a Toyota 4Runner for my company car. That's not the secret. The secret was Cammie, and then Cammie quickly at that point in time had graduated and got a job at the local hospital as a microbiologist. And for the first 2 years we were married, we've kept this up. We continued to almost live like we were still college students, and just, because we were already used to it. We weren't used to the money. So my biggest piece of advice would be never get used to living on your entire income if possible. So get into a habit of putting money away early before you're accustomed to having that money, and then just forget about it. Just put it away monthly. Don't even think about it. Set it up as auto withdrawal from your checking account, and just never, I never even thought about the money going into my 401k because I never got used to living off that money. Right. Now, I know things are different today, and it's a little bit more challenging with the cost of living and things like that. But even if it's $50 a month, $100 a month, especially if you go to work for a company that has a company match, you at least have to contribute what they're going to match. At least. Maximize the matching for sure. Yeah. So to me, I would say there's a unique window when you graduate college to say, I'm used to living off nothing in college, like a poor college student. Before I get used to living off the pay of my first job, let me say I'm going to invest $100 a month, whatever the case may be. And then I'm just going to forget about it. I'm just going to literally forget about it. Do you, or did you, is the secret to grow that? I mean, if you can, like 100 goes to 200 after a couple of years because you can afford them more. I mean, is that optimum, or is there a point at which it's like you're not really gaining anything extra? Well, I mean, you're always gaining if you're putting more in, right. But I always looked at it like I'm not going to leave any money on the table with regard to a company match, as I mentioned a second ago. Like if there was a 3% match by the company, I was for sure going to get, that's free money. I was for sure going to get the match. And then I just looked at it like if I got a raise, like an optimal time to like increase is like, you get a raise and then it's like, okay, take part of that raise and put it over there. You're not used to that money. It's new money that you didn't have before. So it's an optimal time to put a little bit more money over. And then I just put my money real boring in like, index-based mutual funds. Seriously, my story is about as boring as you could get. Well, I was going to ask. I'm trying to James Bond you up here a little bit. Do you give yourself any credit for? I mean, your degree is in economics, right? I mean, you're a math, money sort of a trained human. Yep. Did you give curation and cultivation and changing of funds and see patterns, or was that somebody else's job? No, I always went with I invested in the broad market via index funds, and by being in a, having an econ degree and things like that, I quickly realized that any news that's out there that you can gather is already old news on Wall Street, and I am not going to be smarter than the market. So I'm going to essentially invest in the market, and I'm not going to worry about it. There were a lot of years I went by, like I couldn't have told you, like I was so uninvolved, I couldn't have told you within a couple thousand points where the Dow was at. I did not watch it daily. I did not watch it even weekly or monthly. I don't care. I'm just, if the market's down, my money's actually buying more shares while the market's down. And I didn't think about it. And again, that's why I said, I literally did the most boring thing you could do, but it's also somewhat the most tried and true thing you could do, is just dollar cost average, consistent, invest when the market's up, invest when the market's down, just continually put money in the up markets and the down markets. And, it's over the course of 30 years, history doesn't guarantee future results, but over the course of 30 years, the market's pretty much going to probably average 8 to 10% returns.
Right.
Which is, again, when people are making $100,000 on a Bitcoin investment, or Nvidia's quadrupled for them in the last whatever, it sounds kind of boring, but I never stressed about it either. And there's a value in not having to stress about it.
I'm learning how, even as much as I've, journaled and been aware how much anxiety and stress affects our lives, our sleeping, our walking, our feelings, our just everything. And having the ability, I mean, you're saying all the right things, and it's very similar to the same kind of advice that people are giving. I'll call it the youth, and I'll even put me in the group, but those that are investing in some of these alternative products, is don't watch it daily. It'll make you sick. Don't look at it. Often put your money on. Good.
I'm not saying anything against, like, I had a buddy in my office. We shared a floor at a building, and he was really into crypto back when he was trying to convince me to buy Bitcoin when it was $5,000 a coin. But I was locked into this is what I do. Just tried and true. And, I could look at it and be like, man, if I would have just thrown 15, 20 grand that way, it would have really paid off for me. But I would have also worried about it. So what would that, what's the cost of me having to feel like I'm worried about the ups and downs of Bitcoin versus, I relatively have, I have a good friend that we both know, Tony. And when I talk to him, he can tell you exactly what's happening in the market. And he's like, well, how is this? Like, I'm like, dude, I have no idea. Like, I don't watch the market. And
that's healthy. I'm going to applaud you. That's healthy to stay away from it. I think it's as bad as watching the news. But
and again, it's just, there's enough things in life. But again, I read about people like early in my career, people that like Warren Buffett. There's a really good book called The Billionaire Next Door that really describes that most millionaires are not people that have like hit it rich with like a lot of millionaires are people that live in a suburban community with a Honda Accord in the driveway and have just consistently invested over the period of 20 to 30 years. And now they're in retirement and they have a nice retirement nest egg, but they didn't do it in any fancy way. They just did it in a very in some ways boring way, And
I'm an and guy. Remember Boolean math from A school. I'm an and guy, and I would say sorry, just make sure I don't get run over. With a sub asterisk that says also lives within your means. Like, yes, you're consistently doing this, but you're also, there's not a $1,200 a month Porsche sitting in the driveway just because you need to look cool. Like, there's other aspects of your life.
Hey, nothing wrong. I'm a car guy. Nothing wrong with having the Porsche, but have the Porsche from a place that you have the money, not stretching yourself out to do it. And again, if you're I try over the course of my life to, not only make investments, but I also try to be very charitable. So I don't put myself in positions where, if me having that car or whatever that thing is would keep me from being able to make charitable donations, or like I am one of those guys you might look at and be like, oh, Pat's a good guy. He does it. But you know what? It's actually it's opposite. It's very selfish because I get more from giving than I'm probably provide. Like my son and I were going to a Browns game the other day, and I stopped on the street. There was a guy probably in his 60s that looked homeless. And I know there's a lot of scammers out there, but this guy, had a genuineness about him. His name was Harold. And, I stopped with my son and we talked with him for a while. I gave him some money and prayed with him on the side of the street. And I can promise you, I walked away from that interaction probably more blessed than Harold was. So to me, I don't put myself in a position where I'm so tight with where my budget is that I have an inability to do things like that, because I really enjoy doing things like that.
I think people hear those stories and they want to relate, and they've watched the movies and seen sort of, hey, I'm trying to think of the George movie where he, has the bell every time the bell
It's a
rings.
Wonderful Life.
Yeah, yeah,
old
like
one, yeah.
yeah, you're here's what would happen if I wasn't involved, kind of thing. So I mean, it just the level of gratitude, the level of, I mean, and I've done some of the same kind of things. The level that you feel internally, especially when you can help change someone's life, is amazing. And yes, I
wouldn't say I
agree
gave
with you.
Harold enough money to change his life, but I probably changed that day.
Yeah, he changed his day. Like, he got to interact.
Day.
He got to interact with a human that was genuine. I mean, that's worth more than anything. But okay, so you've retired. You've told me how it was very boring. You are, as you said, semi, because you're still doing articles. You're kind of choosing and doing things like I'm hearing and putting it in my own words that you enjoy.
Still spending some time consulting with my former company to continue, mentoring those guys along and things like that. Right. So, still not completely uninvolved with my past company. I just don't own it anymore.
I hear you. So you're spending some time. Are you considering yourself a remote worker then?
Yeah, actually, a couple months ago, I gave up my formal office space, and most of the time right now, right now you can see where I'm at. I mean, yesterday I met that group that I did the consulting with at a meeting room that they had set up, and we did it there. So I don't have a formal office anymore. I work from either home or I go to where somebody else is at or their business and work from there.
That's great. No, it's really cool. I was just curious.
But I gotta say, this isn't the worst office I've ever had. I mean, this is kind of a decent office.
I mean, I'm assuming your internet provider is giving you, small office Wi-Fi speeds, so you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, right?
No, I have good internet. It's fiber optic, and I have good internet. And if that ever starts going bad, I'd probably just do Starlink.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I'm skipping ahead. You've got the rig. You're starting to do some trips, and you're breaking in, and you're figuring out where things are. You found you needed a little bit more space. We've talked kind of that offline, and we can go deeper into that at some point. But are you thinking, when I am called on the road a couple months a year, are you thinking Starlink is the direction you'll go? Or have you even researched that?
I think you have to have it as, I also have typical hotspot type thing in the RV. But I think if you're traveling across the US or into Canada or anywhere like that, you are going to come across areas where you don't have, data, you don't have good phone connection. So I think if you're going to be traveling at any, at any reasonable amount, I think Starlink is kind of required, and they've made it so cheap now. I think the basic Starlink Mini is like $229, and you could be on a monthly plan for as low as $50 a month. So, it's not it's not
You're
cost
not worried about
prohibitive
that.
anymore.
Yeah,
No.
you're not worried about the. I was going to say, as a mobile guy for 25 years, that's always been the Achilles heel is, getting somewhere where it's dead or what have you. But if
Yeah.
you're able to connect all the time, it's kind of hard to get away. so the devil's in the details, right?
Well, I think that again, if you still want to have, again, even when I'm traveling, I want to be able to enjoy the traveling. But then, if I wake up in the morning and, have a cup of coffee and knock out an hour or two of work from somebody and make a little bit of money or help somebody out with something, I like the ability to, but be doing that from Glacier National Park instead of an office, or be doing that from Yosemite. So as I'm looking at Half Dome, I'm like, yeah, I knocked out a little bit of consulting, or I wrote a paper, or I wrote an article for somebody this morning, but then I walk out and I'm looking at Half Dome or something like that. That to me is, more the angle that I'm going, not that, so the connectivity is, ultimately people talk a lot about how bad phones, but like, you're in control. You can turn your computer off. You can put your phone down. So to me, it's like when people talk about being, a slave to the phone or computer, it's like, you've made that agreement with the phone, or like you have the ability to make a different choice,
We are the accumulation of our choices. So yes, you and I've talked about this on the podcast, so you may have heard this before, but I actually and I laugh about it, but I know how close you are with your dog as well. So when I take my dog for a walk now, 9 times out of 10, I put my phone in the bathroom and I cover it up so that it doesn't know where I am or it is at. And I go walk with the dog by myself, and it's just the two of us, and she's not fighting me trying to look at my device, and we can be together. And yes, it's a choice. You get to choose whether or not, you're going to take it with you.
Well, and I think that, don't get me wrong. I spent a lot of years of my career working 60 to 70 hours a week and priding myself on just about always being available. So I'm not saying this from a position of that I've attained some wisdom or something like that.
Right.
I'm saying this from a position of I've seen, like I've lived probably a couple decades of always being available. And now I'm making a conscious effort to say there's very few things in my life that if I do keep my phone on me, primarily because if my mom's calling me, which my mom is in her mid 80s, or a family member's calling me, I want to make sure that my mom's not being rushed to the hospital or something like that. But there's very few things work related that require that I pick up the phone at all hours or at all, but I do keep my phone on me. Unlike you taking I still probably am at the point where I'm like, hey, if something happens with my mom or my family, I want to know.
I hear you. And I'm usually, talking a 10 to 12 minute walk. So I'll be back, and they chat, so Mom, if you're watching, I am concerned for you as well. Patrick loves his mother, and I love my mother as well. So I'm just making sure that's out there. Sorry, I used and I've been really consciously working not to. We haven't done this in a while. Anything we talked about last time you thought I would sort of, check in? We talked about your vehicle and traveling and retiring and being smart.
I think one thing I want to say about retirement too is you had mentioned earlier, and I kind of used the word semi, but maybe, if you want to use retirement in this way, I think a good definition of retirement is not that you're not working. It's that you have the choice of what you want to work on.
I like that.
Like, you're not working because you have to, you're working because you want to. The minute you reach that point, I think you technically are retired, because you're then making a personal choice. Whatever you're doing, you're choosing to do. Not because you have to, but because you want to. And I think that's, to me, the goal of retirement, is to get to the point where you're living the life you want to live, not because you have to go get a check, but because that's the life that you are choosing to live, and so to me, that may mean you see me doing some form of work all the way till 6 months before I no longer am here, and that's fine, as long as it's my choice to do it and not I have to.
Well, I hear you, and you said that there's pieces of it that you enjoy. Peel that back. Is it pure strategy and helping somebody to see a path to an outcome they're desiring? What gets your ticker going?
I definitely, I would say, in some ways, I don't know if I want to use the word addicted, but the dopamine hit of helping somebody and seeing what I help them with produce good results is like a little bit of a drug to me. So to me, it's like, when I have the ability to help a company with their strategy, and then they execute that strategy and it works really well, with that really, gives me a lot of pride and a lot of, satisfaction in helping that. So, I've always, the reason I started my business and I focused primarily on small to medium-sized businesses is because I worked with large corporations, and you could do some different moves and really do your job well and maybe change the bottom line by a couple $1,000,000, and people are happy about it. And they say, and you get a, pat on the back, and, hey, you did a good job. Maybe you get a raise, but it really doesn't change the trajectory, if you will. In a lot of cases, when you're working with $1 billion company, it's, a couple million here or there. When you work with, let's call it a mom and pop operation, less than 10 employees, maybe they're doing, $800,000 at the top line of revenue, and the owners, after they pay their employees and their rent and everything like that, are doing okay, but they're not really thriving. And you could come in and help them implement some strategies, and within a couple of years, they're doing $1.5 million. That literally changes that entire family's life. I mean, that gives them money to pay for their kids to go to college. That, like, I get more over helping them increase from 800,000 to 1.5 million than I get from $1 million switch, when it doesn't really mean as much. So the impact is what really drives me. The impact, it's not about the number of zeros. It's about how big of a difference that makes for somebody.
The delta. I hear you.
Yeah.
Growth. Did you find any in the time that you did this? Did you find anybody that sort of rebelled against your ideas and could have sort of listened? Is there anybody that rebelled and did way better and you were surprised? I mean, any kind of look backs that you've had recollections on, kind of thing?
First of all, I've always approached it like, nobody's got a monopoly on good ideas. Like, just because it's not my idea doesn't mean it's not a good idea. So I've never thought that I somehow had the one good idea, if you will. Ultimately, I've always also been very sensitive to the fact that when I'm working with somebody, it's their business. Like, that
was part of my question, right? You're telling them
it's their business.
Right.
So to me, if I give them some suggestions and they decide, you know what, I thank you for that, but I'm going to go this other direction, ultimately, I don't, again, my goal is to help them. If they don't feel that what I'm offering or what I'm suggesting is going to help them, I certainly don't want them to implement it just because they feel like, they owe me something. So to me, I wouldn't say I
wasn't even thinking it from that perspective. So thank you. Yeah, I hear you.
No, but there's obviously, like I said, I've seen clients that have not followed that path. And a lot of times and I can empathize with this as a business owner myself. A lot of times it's, a business can grow to a certain point and then it starts to stall out because the owner cannot accept not having their arms wrapped around every bit of the business. So a lot of times what's happening is the owner wants to be more involved than maybe the size of their company would dictate. So they end up maybe, but if that's what they feel comfortable doing, it's their business. They can do whatever they want. But I think most businesses, if you track small businesses, it will get to a point where the owner through sure will can grow it to a certain point, but then you have to begin to rely on other people or you're just never going to grow. And for some people that might be fine. They may feel like, the stress of having other people and other employees is more than. I have a buddy that's in construction that has done very well over the course of his career, but he could have done far, far better financially if he would have hired more crews and been able to be in multiple places at once. But that's just not the path he chose. He would rather be involved in the job and be out there swinging a hammer himself and things like that. And he's done very well, and he's been at peace with it. So who am I to tell him that's the wrong choice?
Right. I hear you.
I've also seen businesses grow, and the owner would say had a business that it was him and his wife and maybe a part-time employee. It was doing $400,000 a year top line. They were making a nice living on the bottom line, and they decided to grow. And next thing you know, they have 20 employees and they're doing $2 million and things like that. And they're more miserable. They're more unhappy than they were when they were doing $400,000 with one part-time employee. So sometimes just scale and growth for the sake of scale and growth, you really have to do some examination of yourself and decide what do you really want and what's a good fit for you. Because I know people that have attained a pretty successful by the world's terms business and tell me, man, I really wish I could just go back to a handful of us in a small shop, like the camaraderie, like they reminisce about how much they enjoyed that element. So who am I to tell them that the path that they should be on is to always seek growth and hire more people and grow bigger and bigger and bigger? In some cases, that's not what's going to make them happier.
Right.
It's all about what's going to. Everybody's wired differently, and I think you've got to really do a lot of self-reflection and figure out what is it that you really want in life out of this company. And I think then you need to execute against that and not get caught up in other people's opinions or anything like that. I mean, if you're happy with a $300,000-$400,000 business that's you and your wife and a part-time person, and it makes a good living for you, and there's not a lot of stress, and you get to take holidays, and who am I to tell you that's the wrong choice?
So many examples and what do you want to call it? Parables, whatever, of the guy that's sitting there and he's got the one boat and they tell him to build this thing up to the thing so that he can retire someday and have the one boat. It's like, back to what you're saying. It's important for you to look at what it is you're really after, make sure that it all makes sense. It's my, I've talked with you, I think, and others. It's like my 95-year-old father-in-law, that hair on fire, still driving a Tesla guy, is like completely changed my opinion of what I thought retirement was, to back to full circle of how this conversation started and where we're going. And I don't think he's ever, quote, put on anything he's ever been retired a day in his life. And, I look to be that same way. I want to be working by choice. I've had some things that have caused that not to be a reality at this point, but working towards that. And I've enjoyed the conversation. I'm going to say, I think we're coming up on the part of this where I'm like, hey, I've I brought you to the maximum I told you I'm going to take you. And I'm doing a school volunteer. So I've been walking kind of one way to my grandson's
Cool.
elementary school, and they're doing a Jingle Bells run. And one of my grandsons has actually won it maybe 2 years. So yeah, I'm doing the grandparent assist thing, and so I'm getting ready to
Nice.
walk up.
I like it.
Yeah, but I appreciate you making the
Hey
time
man,
to
I'm
do
glad.
this.
I appreciate always being on. It's always a good conversation, and it's to me. I love the fact that some of the things you talk about a lot are leading with love and gratitude and things like that, because I could tell you, and I'll close with this. 3 years ago, when I got a pretty bad diagnosis with cancer and I was sitting in the hospital room, I now look at those type of situations in my life like it was actually a blessing, because that brings a level of clarity that I don't think that you get outside of a situation like that. And you truly realize that being grateful and having gratitude for what you have and what the things are in your life that you should be grateful for, and also what's really important in your life. Like, and, it brings that into a really strong clarity, to the point where I've talked to my doctors before, and I said, you can't put that genie back in the box. Like, once you see life from that perspective, you can't just then go, okay, I'm good now, I'll just go back to doing things the way I used to do. It's like a life changing, thing. And I feel like, to me, that's where I want to spend whether it's another 40 years, whatever it is, that's where I want to spend my time, is really with the people that are most important to me, and with gratitude, and also giving back. I mean, I really want to, do my part to say, hey, God's been very good to me. And I feel like, when with that comes a responsibility to try to give back and do good for others as well. I mean, and that's kind of where I'm at. And I feel really good about that. And I feel like, to me, I feel like probably for the first time in my life, these last couple of years, that, I'm doing the things that actually are in alignment with what I would have said my goals were, which is, faith, family, things like that. And I would have said that 20 years ago, but was I actually living in alignment with those goals? Probably not, so.
Yes, I hear you. Thank you. And we'll do this again soon. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Yeah, where are you at? Before I let you go, where are you at on the second lap? Like, how far are you into the second lap?
It's kind of a funny story. Long story short, there's a conflict between what they say and what they say. I think I'm about 36,200, call it, miles, and 24.9 or 25 is the first lap. So I think I'm a good way, almost to 50% of the second lap.
Okay.
Averaging 8 to 10 miles a day.
Dude, we got to get you like a shoe sponsor. New Balance, somebody, man.
You can be my agent. Anything you can, relegate.
I'm just saying, like, to me, like, I know you've showed me a picture of all the shoes that you've went through. I'm like,
100 pair of Brooks. You'd think Brooks would want to talk about the Walker.
Like, there you go. Like, we got to, I didn't realize it was New Balance, Brooks, or whatever, but we got to, Brooks would seem like that, I mean, as a podcast, what I'd like to see is right below your second lap logo, a Brooks logo, brought to you by Brooks. There you go.
I would love to see that too. We will manifest that into reality. Brooks,
there you go.
Thanks. All right, man. Hey, love you. Have a great Thursday. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care, man.
All right. Appreciate you. Bye.